Daredevil Born Again Season 1 is out in full on Disney+, which technically you could make a case is the first half of a longer season, because the show had an 18 episode order straight away, but ended up dividing that in two. First 9 episodes are out now, the other 9 are currently in production, scheduled for release next year. So this is another show in the MCU, although in a first it's a direct follow-up to one of the old Netflix shows done under the old Marvel television banner. In this case it was of course Daredevil, which ran for 3 seasons, and for a large portion of those was actually one of the best comic book shows ever. Gritty, adult, mature, violent. So naturally, when Disney announced that they were bringing back the main actors Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio and doing a soft reboot, this worried some people, myself included. Would the show not become sanitized and kid-friendly and, worst of all, poorly written, like so many other recent MCU Disney Plus shows? The worries were further exacerbated by the troublesome production. The show originally had different showrunners and was largely completed into the first season when the actors' strike interrupted production, and the showrunners showed what they had at the time to Kevin Feige and the rest of the producers at Marvel. And apparently those guys disliked it so much that they fired the original showrunners, hired Dario Scardapane, who made the Punisher TV show, and gave him mandate to rewrite and rework the show. Given the leaks of what was supposed to happen in the original vision, I think it was an excellent choice, if a difficult one. So Foggy Nelson was supposed to die off-screen, and neither him nor Karen Page would appear in the show at all. Jon Bernthal was invited and refused to come back as Punisher because he disliked what they wanted to do with his character. Charlie Cox would not wear the Daredevil suit for the vast majority of the show, which would focus rather on his exploits as a lawyer, and in general it was reportedly less violent, more lighthearted, less action-packed. So Scardapane came in, parts of the original storyline and footage was kept, parts was reworked, parts were done completely fresh. I believe episode 1 is mostly new footage, and 8 and 9 are completely brand new, and those episodes are probably the strongest of the season overall. But the question still remains, is it good as a whole season, and how does it compare to the original run? Well, I'd say it is pretty good. There are things which are done equally well as in the Netflix version. There are things which are done better than there. And to be fair, there are also some flaws which I didn't like. But overall, I'm very happy with what we got, and I'm really excited for the second season, which is now, of course, fully in the hands of the seemingly more competent people. So yeah, but let's start with the good stuff. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are both excellent, as they always have been in their roles, and they carry the show. It's always been evident from even interviews and sort of public appearances and so on that they have a ton of passion and understanding for these characters, and playing them is not just a job, and it really shows. Same goes for Deborah Ann Woll and Jon Bernthal, who is back as Punisher after the reworked version was acceptable to him. All 4 of them are really important components of why the show works so well, and especially the direct interactions between Matt and Fisk, Matt and Karen, Matt and Frank are some of the best scenes in the show. I like the action, which is well shot, well choreographed, and brutal despite being on Disney Plus. In fact, it's brutal beyond belief. If I'm honest, I'm not joking when I say that the violence here is way harder than the original Daredevil, way harder than the Punisher, than Daredevil or Logan or Blade or other R-rated comic book properties. In fact, there's one scene in particular involving Kingpin, which is one of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen on TV anywhere. So clearly there was no reason to worry on this front. I liked the Muse and Bullseye and White Tiger storylines, and how they are weaved into the main plot. I like the main theme of this season being kind of drawing a parallel between Fisk and Matt in how they both pretend they've shed their previous lives and gone straight. But of course we know sooner or later the inner tendencies will come back out for both of them. A lot of those parallels and contrasts are also done visually, through use of colors, light, mirror shots, such as Fisk descending the stairs to his dungeon, intercut with Matt climbing the stairs to his rooftop hideout. Some of the cinematography is very well done. I enjoyed the music and the fact that for the most part the show feels mature and treats its audience with respect. There's also a strong undertone of exploring fascism and skirting the rule of law by criminal businessmen elected into positions of power, which is definitely something that rings truer each day with the Trump regime in America. Finally, I think the show does an excellent job of fitting into the MCU. It references stuff like Skrulls and Miss Marvel and Swordsman in ways that feel natural and fun and organic. And even though they have little actual impact on the story, it doesn't feel forced. It does feel like, okay, this is taking place in the Marvel world. There are points of connection. On the other hand, I have to be honest and point out some of the flaws. It is evident that the show was a bit of a patch job, and there are noticeable differences in quality and tone between some of the old retooled scenes and some of the new ones. I don't think that the romance between Matt and Heather ultimately went into an interesting place, even though it starts good. I wasn't a fan of some of the Kingpin Mayor stuff, which felt drawn out, especially in the first half, and I didn't like the couples therapy subplot. I thought that was a bit poorly written, poorly executed. I think there are some pacing and editing problems here and there, with some of the scenes feeling stiff or weird. The best example would probably be an early scene where Fisk gets out of the car and motivates construction workers to get on with their work. That felt super contrived and poorly written and even more poorly executed. I also wasn't a fan of how often the show would intercut between two different scenes to really hammer home the point of analogies. Like, I would think to myself, no, don't cut away from Matt in the middle of this dialogue. I want to see this play out till the end. Then you can cut to the next scene. There's no need to go back and forth. I thought that felt hasty and a little jumpy at times. Also, as much as some of the cinematography was good, I thought that a lot of it felt a bit claustrophobic and cramped. Looks cheap and filmed on small sound stages, which is weird because apparently most of the exteriors were done on location in actual New York. So I don't know how it managed to look so bland then. And especially compared to the gritty, sort of realistic texture that the original run had, the really great New York sort of neon atmosphere, neon night atmosphere that it had. This feels lackluster on that front so far. I also wasn't a big fan of the character played by Michael Gandolfini. I know what they're going for, but I thought that his demeanor and dialogue was irritating more than anything, and I honestly never once believed that Kingpin, of all people, would keep a guy like that so closely to him. It just felt weird. So, a lot of good, a fair amount of flawed, but overall I'd say that the better parts of the show definitely win over the ones that are lacking, and I enjoyed the entire season very much. I think it's a worthy successor to the original run, maybe not quite reaching the same heights just yet, but I'm very confident about the current showrunners and excited about the second season.